Welcome. Today we're going to break down the Sovereign Protocol. Think of this as the PenzanceChess blueprint for managing your most powerful piece. This is all about a complete shift in how you see the board, moving beyond simple tactics into a much more sophisticated strategic framework.
Look, this one sentence, it's the bedrock of the entire protocol. What it's really asking for is a shift from impulsive, often frantic action to a kind of strategic patience. We're not just looking for any move. We're waiting for that one precise moment to execute.
You know, a lot of you have been asking for more material on pattern recognition and improving tactical vision. Well, this protocol is the answer. And it all starts with understanding one core concept, the Queen's sovereign square. Trust me, mastering this is the key to seeing the board with total clarity, turning what looks like chaos into a structured plan. Okay, let's get right into the blueprint. First up, we're going to diagnose a really common strategic error that I see all the time. Then, we'll shift gears and introduce a totally new mindset for managing your key pieces. From there, we'll lay out the tactical plan, and finally, we'll cover the big one, exactly when to strike.
So our first order of business is to diagnose a chronic and frankly often fatal strategic flaw, what we call the premature activation trap.
So let's really dig into this central question. Why? Why does bringing your most powerful piece, your queen, out to play so early in the game so often end in total disaster? What's going on there? Why does that first instinct to attack backfire so badly?
Well, it turns out this failure is incredibly predictable. It's a three-step cascade, and it almost always happens the same way. It all kicks off with overextension. You move the queen before your bishops and knights are even set up. And that leads you straight into the harassment cycle. Your opponent gets to develop their pieces for free by just attacking your exposed queen. You're losing time, you're losing tempo. And it all ends in a ghost attack, a weak, unsupported charge that just fizzles out because it has no backup.
So, how do we fix this? Well, the fix, it's not a small tweak. It requires a complete paradigm shift in your thinking. We need to stop seeing the queen as just another game piece and start treating her like a high-value asset.
See, in this protocol, your queen, she's not just a piece anymore. She's a high-value asset, or an HVA. And the thing is, her power doesn't come from where she's moving right now. It comes from her kinetic potential, all the stored energy of all the things she could do. The threat of her potential is almost always more powerful than any single move.
And this slide just lays it all out, side by side. The old way of thinking, right? You're looking for early action, you're measuring your success by how many pieces you capture. But the high-value asset mindset, that's all about strategic reserve. You measure value and potential, and you use that potential to anchor your entire position, all with minimal risk. And the danger of sticking with that old mindset, well, the protocol has a name for it: asset devaluation. This is what happens when your HVA gets tied down dealing with cheap enemy units, like pawns or knights. Her incredible power is basically neutralized, you've lost all your tempo, and your whole position starts to crumble.
Okay, so all of this brings us to the absolute core tactical doctrine of the protocol, the Sovereign Square Blueprint. This is how you establish your queen's command and control center.
Listen closely here. In the opening, your number one goal is not to attack. It's to find and secure a sovereign square. This is a safe, influential command post deep in your own territory. Think D2 or E2 for white, D7 or E7 for black. From here, she influences everything without being exposed to any cheap shots.
And when you do this, you create this incredible effect. The protocol calls it defensive gravity. Think about it. From her sovereign square, your queen exerts this passive pull on the entire game. She doesn't even have to move. Her mere presence, that kinetic potential we talked about, forces your opponent to second-guess everything, to constantly calculate all the threats she could make. You're draining their mental clock without making a single aggressive move. But here's the catch. A high-value asset like this can't protect itself. Its security, and by extension, its power, it all depends on the structures you build around it. Your HVA is only as strong as its infrastructure of protection.
So what does this infrastructure look like? Well, it's got three critical components. First, the knight screen, using your knights to block off those dangerous diagonals. Second, pawn shelling. You have to maintain a solid pawn structure as a shield. And finally, and this is non-negotiable, the exit strategy. Before your queen ever considers moving, you must have a pre-planned, absolutely safe flight square for her to retreat to.
All right, we've diagnosed the problem, we've established the mindset, we've built the infrastructure, so now we get to the final critical phase, the kinetic burst. When do we finally release this asset?
Now, this is absolutely crucial. Deploying the queen is never an impulse move. It's a calculated response to very specific triggers on the board. You unleash her for the final liquidation, breaking through only after your other pieces have created maximum tension. You deploy her to target weak infrastructure, exploiting what we call pawn rot around their king. Or you bring her out for endgame dominance, once the board is clear of all those little harassing pieces.
So, when you boil it all down, the Sovereign Protocol is really an exercise in strategic reserve. It's a doctrine built on patience and potential. And just remember, the longer your high-value asset stays as a threat in waiting, the more intense the psychological pressure you exert on your opponent. So I'm going to leave you with one final thought, a question to take to your next game. Instead of asking, where can my queen attack? I want you to ask yourself this. Where is her sovereign square? Find that first. The right attack will reveal itself.